working on the Illinois River, get a half a day off with pay. Oh, towboat picking up barges on a long hot summer day.
Howdy guys, and welcome back to the RedAss podcast, episode 10. This is Fighting Texas Aggie Class 14, Rob White.
Yeah, it is Roy.
Oh, Roy.
At this point, yeah, you figure, if you down them, Fighting Texas Aggie Class 2015.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's definitely the way to go. Well, hey guys, we're really happy to be back, and of course, we find ourselves in the middle of a bit of a heat wave here in Texas. It is absolutely ridiculous outside. I've been running around. I think heat index was pushing 108 today, 109.
I believe it.
It's ridiculous. This temperature is driving me nuts. But that's not the only thing that's been hot. The world is literally on fire with all this craziness going on. We got hot Aggie recruiting. There's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, recruiting's on a roll, and not just football either.
Yeah.
Talking about the baseball commits that we picked up recently, and then, our junior, soon-to-be senior in high school softball commit had a video go viral, and she was just lacing the ball.
Absolutely melting baseballs. That was awesome.
I love how every swinging dick in a 7,000 area code radius decided to come on and talk trash about it. And you're just like, dude, cram it, man.
It's like, first and foremost, you probably didn't even play varsity baseball, and two, just because you can hit the hell out of a beer league softball doesn't mean you can do anything what she can do. So y'all need to chill.
Yeah. Those bats are a little bit different than that $300 DeMarini you picked up at Academy, fat ass.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong. I love beer league softball. Huge fan.
Me too.
But I've kind of, I'm an athlete. I've played sports all my life, and I won't sit here in a million years and tell you that I could get into the batter's box in softball and put a barrel on that. It's a different release point, not to mention they're really close.
Right.
And so it's a whole different approach. And hey, the thing I was impressed with, she's got a pure swing. I mean, she drives. That's better than some baseball swings I've seen, man. The way she turns, really drives her hips and rotates. You could say to an extent, if you watch the video a couple times, like she was almost intentionally spraying, starting at left center and moving to right center. Although it might also have to do with, one, it's probably 90 degrees at night where she's hitting, and two, that was pretty rapid fire. She was, swing, cock it up, swing, cock, swing, and she might just get a little tired as the ball kind of works its way to the right, because what she probably hit was 8 or 10 balls in a span of 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah, and there were balls that were going over the lights. I was like, rock and roll.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
She can belt it. But
no
anyways.
Something to be excited about for you softball people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know what we were talking about here as far as our topics for the podcast today. We were going over a handful of things, but I think with the big news coming out is a lot of leagues are moving to a conference-only schedule as we're going forward. So far, I think the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have been the two that have really lined that up, and I'm sure there'll be other conferences to follow here shortly.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's interesting because you figure, the P5, the Power 5 conferences were always going to be the ones that really got to dictate it. I thought it was interesting when the Ivy League came out and said stuff, and I was just scratching my head who gives a shit? I don't really care what the Ivy League does or says, and it's almost like everybody was waiting because whatever the Ivy League does is going to be the first domino to fall. And dude, it really wasn't, man. The Ivy League doesn't have any say in what real football, or what happens in real football. No offense to them. They're not there to be football powerhouses, and this is in the 30s and 40s. All right.
Right.
So the Ivy League's announcement when it came out, I just didn't care. But I thought it was really interesting because you figure, all the Power 5 conferences, this was really an opportunity. Unfortunate the reasoning behind it, but it was almost an opportunity for the power conferences to to really band together and make a move against the NCAA. And what ended up happening is the snot wagons in the Big Ten just decided to come out and say what they were doing. And now the problem is your other conferences kind of have to scramble because, you're talking about, I mean, obviously your non-conference games are, everybody's got some cupcakes, but, with the emphasis over the last handful of years of playing a true Power 5 non-conference opponent, now all of a sudden by your decision, like you coming out and making a decision, you have automatically affected schedules everywhere, which is forcing the hand of the conference only crap.
Exactly. And unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of cannibalization now, where you weren't going to be able to have a lot of that additional experience out of conference and really get a lot of opportunity. Now, I will say we obviously haven't seen any decisions in our Southern conferences, Big 12, SEC, ACC yet. I'm sure those decisions will be coming here in the next few days. I guess my question to you, Roy, what do you think we're going to be doing?
Man, I was thinking about that. Well, I was setting up actually. I was like, I wonder if I could really even put a percentage on it. Like right now, I got to be honest. I don't think it's a very good chance we have football in the fall at all.
I think you're right.
Because I think, the Big Ten can come out and say what they want to, and the Pac-12 can follow suit because the Pac-12 just is the conference that needs somebody's coattails to ride. It's just they're that part of the they're the worst of the P5. Honestly, it's between them and the Big 12. But
right.
I honestly think the Pac-12 is worse. But the problem is once everything settles, all the dust settles after these announcements. I think cooler heads are going to finally come back to the table, and everybody's going to say, look. There's a couple things that affect this. One, the money, not necessarily like the ticket money that the big schools are making, but these checks that these smaller schools get are imperative to keep their programs going. And so if you basically have an entire season where you've cut those games out, you are going to kill programs everywhere.
Well, and you're already starting to see that with Stanford. They announced that they were cutting a ton of varsity sports. Were getting kicked out. I know they were losing rowing and wrestling and a handful of other sports too.
Yeah, it's surprising. Stanford, honestly, it was a surprise that it was Stanford.
Right.
But no, it's so. I think what it's eventually going to end up being is I think we're going to shift to the spring, and it's going to make the spring completely insane because the spring sports are still going to be there. The only ones you really have to mess with. Really, the only sport you really have to mess with is basketball because it's in the fall and the spring. So that'll be interesting because one, I think you're going to see stuff like the Maui Invitational. Those just aren't going to happen. Those invitational tournaments, those are done. But I think you'll see closer to an almost all conference type schedule with basketball, but they're going to have to start in the spring. And now, I mean, technically, it'd be in the winter, spring semester. You figure, they're going to have to set an arbitrary cutoff, December 31st. So starting January 1st, whatever. But I think you'll see basketball schedules get cut a little bit. I think they'll lose some, but that's not revenue-wise. That's not a huge loss to almost every single school that has a basketball program. There's only 5 or 6 that are in the black, right? Mm-hmm. that don't operate in the red. And it's a lot easier to operate in the black as a basketball program when your players are getting $400,000 given to their family.
Right.
I wanted to remark on that real quick because if you had if you were at any confusion as to just how insane everything has been over the last week or two, Coach K, the bastion of purity and honesty, coach of Duke basketball, a report came out that Zion's family got $400,000. I saw, I got the ESPN little mobile alert, and that was the last I saw of it. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything on Twitter. I haven't seen nothing. So everybody's like, you know what, whatever. Anyways, that's the world we're living in. That a kid got almost $500,000 to go to a school. That's insane. But
it's nuts, absolutely nuts. And especially for a program like Duke and for a player like him, it makes sense that something like that would happen. But with that going on and just the whole world that we do live in, it's absolutely nuts. I mean, these things are getting swept under the rug, not even a big deal.
I know, it's just like a Friday evening news dump type story. That's what I had the feel of it,
Right.
But getting back to this sports stuff, I think what you're going to find though is the one thing that I think we'll get a full slate of football. If football goes on in the spring, we will get a full slate, non-conference, all of it. If we're at that point, I think the decisions put out by the Big Ten and the Pac-12 were maybe still a little early, to be honest.
Could have been.
I think you still have a couple of weeks. I mean, I know models show which way this is trending, but again, give it the full time before you make announcements. And but I think what's going to be interesting is for the bigger schools that have our big football program and they have a big baseball following. So really, the entire Southeast Conference,
right?
The Southeastern Conference, and then some school, Michigan's obviously one of the Big Ten. The schools that have better baseball programs. You'll see the ACC will be another one because ACC baseball is real big. Yeah. And I think what you're going to see is it's almost going to be a problem for these schools to figure out where to put everybody on the weekends where it occurs. Now, the one thing you can do is I think you'll see a ton of schedule shuffling to get out of football's way. Straight up.
And that was where my brain was going. I'm thinking as far as our series, we may lose some Tuesday games here and there. I think what you're going to end up doing is doing a lot of those weekend series will be in the middle of the week, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday kind of deal.
Well, so you look but they're still students, remember. So
right.
You have to be careful about playing too many games during the middle of the week. But my thing is, so how many conference games does baseball play roughly?
Conference games, I want to say it's 30.
So 30, right?
Right.
So you figure what? So that's 10 series. 5 of them are home, 5 of them away normally. Normally split pretty even, isn't it, with baseball?
Right. Exactly.
Right. So it's only 5 weekends, and football's only 7. So this isn't going to be a huge shuffle.
No.
But baseball and softball programs should be prepared to lose a home series and maybe not get it back. And maybe go uneven, have more road series than home series. But the reality is that football is the cash cow, and that's just how it's going to be.
Right.
You're not going to sacrifice a home football game with 180 or 100,000 people for what, 10,000 people?
If that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's just the reality of the situation.
Baseball and softball, 10, maybe 12 on a huge weekend.
Yeah, for both of them.
So yeah, so I mean, I get that it turns into 30,000, but still, we have more students at Kyle than that, So
right.
So it'll get pushed around. But the other thing I thought was really interesting, to really truly answer your question, I think we'll have a full slate of football. I just don't think it's going to be in the fall.
Would you prefer a full slate of football in the spring or a limited schedule in the fall?
I want the full slate.
You want the full slate?
Absolutely. One, because the out of conference, the non-conference games are important. There are some big matchups in there that play directly into your ranking, and then they're the lesser non-conference games, the cupcakes, if you want to call them that do your team a lot of good.
No doubt.
What do you do if the first week of football you're going to Tuscaloosa? That's nothing like a first week if you go to Jerry's World and play Oregon. It's two completely separate things. So I know the SEC always has a real early conference game, and I love that, but it's kind of a one-off. It's not like it's not crazy. So I personally I want a full slate. If it's in the spring and it makes the spring completely insane, so be it. I'm down with the insanity. Let's get down with the sickness and do it, man.
Oh wow!
You will not have a weekend where you have an excuse to be bored if you're a student or you live in town.
Yeah.
But
I'm just envisioning my spring with baseball, football, and potentially getting back into playing shows. Man, my spring is going to be so completely screwed up.
Better start hydrating, man.
No kidding.
Like now. But the other thing I think was interesting about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and kind of what we were talking about, we had the Power Five that really had the opportunity to kind of band together and either strengthen the NCAA, which I don't think is anybody's desire, or really show a true break as the entire conglomerate of Power Five teams and the 5 conferences to basically make a decision and tell the NCAA that you're going to do what we tell you you're going to do to start to finally cut the legs out from underneath that organization. And the problem I saw with it was because the Big Ten jumped out and opened their mouth, and then the Pac-12 had to follow suit. Now you don't see any sort of cohesion or working together with the Power Five conferences, and this was a perfect opportunity to tell the NCAA to pack its bags, or at least start that process. So, but regardless of how the decisions were made, made separate as opposed to together, I think it still shows that, to an extent, it still shows that the P5s, they don't care about the NCAA.
Well, it's
Because
very similar to your ex-girlfriend situation, right? You go back to what you're familiar with. You're scared to go out and do something else, something different, something to push. Now, also, when you look at our Power 5 conferences, they do have a variety of different goals, as it were. I mean, yes, they have some similarities. Obviously, we talk about how football is the cash cow, but there are focuses on other things, and they're being just regionally different. There's a lot of other issues. So I can understand there being a lack of cohesion, but I really wish they would have had a firm platform, and that would have been something.
yeah, it's and I understand it's a regional thing, and I get that. But I mean, if you're saying you're not going to play out of conference games, then everybody could have said that together, because that's the idea of conferences outside
Right.
of the Big 12. They're all in the same region.
Exactly.
So, and the Big Ten or the ACC can sweep Notre Dame in for this. They're in the ACC for everything else, aren't they?
Right. Yeah, they are
Just
ACC, and they're technically, yeah, they're just an associate member for
yeah,
football, but they're not, they don't actually
yeah. So,
associate with the conference.
so for this season, you'd have to sneak them in if you wanted to, and so they
Right.
could get conference games, and then and who cares? I mean, Clemson's going to win the ACC anyway, so they can have
Right.
another team. Nobody cares. But I thought it was unfortunate, because it really was an opportunity to tell the NCAA to pound sand. Now, that being said, because they just came out and said it, and I didn't read the full stinking press release.
Mhm.
I heard the reports. I know what they decided. It wasn't like these decisions are being made like in the NCAA office, or they're in conjunction with discussions we have with the NCAA. That they just made the decision. Now I do get the Big Ten's ties to the NCAA. I understand that. So it's almost like, well, since was it Emmert, and Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, something like that, and he's got Big Ten ties,
Yeah.
and so maybe he was just like, not only am I Big Ten, I'm NCAA, and I'll just tell y'all what to do. So I could see that being the thing from him, because
Hmm.
he's a schmuck.
Right. Well, he's got ties back to the University of Washington. He was chancellor of LSU for a while, University of Connecticut, Montana State,
Oh no, no,
Colorado Boulder.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about the selection committee.
Ah,
Yeah, that's what, because I know the Big Ten's tied in with that. No, but Emmert's kind of a empty suit, man. It's
yeah.
it's so I would have liked to have seen some cohesion between the five. Even just sit down and talk and be like, all right, here's the decision. Even if all five of us are going to, make slightly different decisions, you'd like to see them all kind of make the announcement around the same day or time. Hey, the Big Ten's going to announce this, and then we're going to go directly to the Pac-12 conference, going to go to the SEC conference, press conference, going to go to the Big 12 press conference. But it almost felt like it was out of the blue. And
Hmm.
I think that's what shows that if I were the NCAA, I'd be like, well, obviously you guys can't get along and work together, so you still need us.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think if you want a full slate, it's going to be in the fall, or
In the
excuse me,
spring.
in the spring. I know that people want football, and we need it and this and that, but man, a conference only slate's going to suck.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And like I said, for our purposes, for our end goal of winning a national title, it's going to behoove us to have those non-conference games. It's going to help us with that. And
No,
God forbid they would expand like the idea of doing just a fall schedule and we get thrown in with an additional East opponent or two. That would suck. We don't need that.
yeah, and then from there, how do you? I mean, at that point, then there is is there a rankings bias? Because how do you rank? Nobody's played anybody else, so how do you rank them? You can rank them within the conference, but you can't rank them nationally. You just
Right.
can't do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no outside comparison, which is like half the battle right there.
yeah, there will be an absolute bias, and there will absolutely be cries of bias. So there's no way to do that without pissing a lot of people off, to be honest.
Exactly.
And I don't think anybody wants to play a conference only schedule, end up with some weird kind of round robin at the end, and get what would basically be an asterisk, whatever.
Yeah.
National championship, national championship with a footnote. So, but yeah, no, I just the conference realignment stuff was just interesting to me to see how it really the Power Five conferences, how disjointed everything was coming out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that just seems to be the case for us and really the nation as a whole. But that's a whole different discussion. Just seems like there's a lot of disjointed things going on.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you what, I am ready for us to get back into the real world and do some real world things. A personal note for me, for those of you who don't keep up with my life, I just got signed on with a new job that I'm doing this next week. Pretty exciting with Texas Media Foundry is the name of the crew. They're good guys. And at that point, I had actually just left Wayfair.
You got, which is what I need.
Yeah, just left Wayfair a little while ago, and this is a conspiracy theory. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I saw you posted on Twitter. It's insane to me, but you know what? Right now, there isn't a single conspiracy theory or news byline that could come out that I wouldn't at least go, well, maybe.
Well, right. For those of you who aren't aware of what it is, basically,
I could see that. It's 2020. Of course you can.
There are these super overpriced storage cabinets and custom made, I want to say, throw pillows that all would have the name of what would be a missing person, namely children, missing kids, and they had prices on them that were upwards of $9,000, $12,000, $13,000, and somebody would call into the website and be like, "Oh, what's up with this price?" At which point, Wayfair would immediately take it down. Now, having worked in sales and having taken calls, I can attest that I have seen items on the website that are upwards of $9,000-$10,000, and I'm sitting there scratching my head, wondering why the heck is this price at that point when somebody calls in, and I would have to quote unquote put in a ticket. At which point they would take it down off the website. But just having worked there, it wouldn't shock me. Let me just put it that way. It's just wild to me. I can't believe that.
Well, at least you got out when you did. But honestly, that's the thing, dude. Right now, it's 2020. Nothing is going to shock me anymore.
No.
The Lord could come right now. And it's it. Second coming of Christ, Armageddon time. It would not shock me.
No, not even a little bit.
I'd be a little embarrassed because this isn't I'm a t-shirt and shorts pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got my West Ham shorts on. I got an 82nd shirt on. That's
Jesus comes walking in on a cloud. You say, "Read the room."
Yeah. So, yeah. Right.
Hold up. We have some things to figure out first before we can come on up.
If we ever figure them out.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's been absolutely crazy. All right, let's see. What else have we had on our slate today?
I wanted to talk about dude, why would you ask me? I knew it before you asked me. Oh, yeah. So, again, and everybody says, well, we turn it off once you start talking about soccer. We're going to talk about something that happens in the Premier League, but why we would like to see it in American sports. And that's the concept of relegation. And I brought it up because, like I probably said before on this show, I follow Peter Burns on Twitter. He's an awesome follow. And he brought it up because, right now everybody's jonesing for sports and the Premier League is on. So a lot of people that were never Premier League fans have, begun watching it. It's like when the Korean Baseball League came on, people were waking up at 4:00 in the morning just so they could watch sports. And, Bundesliga kicked up and like people are trying to figure out if they had any ancestors anywhere in Germany so they could figure out what team to root for.
Exactly.
But so the Premier League has, the Premier League, it's called relegation. There's 20 clubs. There's 20 clubs at the top flight of the Premier League, and every year the bottom three which means they've basically bottom three places. They get kicked out, man. They get sent down to the championship league, and it's the top three in the championship league, right?
Yeah, it's the
And
top three. So it'd be
it's
the
a, yeah, it's a three.
first. It'd be
Yeah,
1 and 2, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6 go to a playoff in
yeah,
order
for the
to make
for the
it.
final spot. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So this happens every year, and so like today, this morning, I got up early before my golf round, and West Ham played Norwich at 6:15 Texas time because of course.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, a Saturday 6 a.m. alarm is not real high on my list of things I love. But I got up, watched it, and West Ham wins 4-0, and Norwich City is officially relegated because there's no way that they can accrue enough points with the remaining games to get out of the zone.
Yep,
So they're
gone.
done. They're done. This is the 5th time that they've been relegated and sent down. And so what Peter Burns brought up was he wanted to see relegation in American sports. I think that's something interesting to talk about.
Yeah. With the major American sports, you do have, obviously, you look at football, baseball, and hockey, and you touch on, I guess, what's the other one? Basketball. Yeah. They're top level sports.
Yes. Good job. You have
Woo!
named all
I had,
four.
I had
That
to
was
think about those for a minute.
okay.
But,
That was the $100 question. Good job,
ooh,
buddy.
it's like, what's the other one? Okay, but yeah, with our top level sports, we'll go ahead and throw in MLS and other leagues if you want. I think the best way to go about it is you got to look at the leagues that currently exist and the way that they currently operate.
Well, and one thing I want to say before we go further, I don't think relegation in college works. All right.
No.
Like I get it, like ha ha ha, we'll trade the AAC for Arkansas for Memphis. Yeah,
Right.
I get that's fun, but the reality is, you're talking about professional sports where it is truly 100% a business, and the money flow is massive.
Well, and in college, it's so hard to determine like what determines a relegation for one school versus something else. Is it a grand total point thing? Is just like
Yeah.
one school just terrible at every sport? Do they get sent down? It's just there's so many like other
Yeah,
moving
that's the
parts.
catch. Like, can you send the football team down, but not the basketball team?
Exactly.
So you'd have to go off like presidents. Cause it's the idea behind this, kind of what I'm talking about, and what Peter Burns was referring to, and what I saw a lot of people talk about in the comments. It's like the bastion of capitalism that America is, and in the professional sports leagues, we reward the bad teams that decide to tank the rest of the season by giving them good draft picks.
Right.
When really, and there's still managerial decisions that have to be made, but we're giving them. We're giving it to them.
Right.
You know?
There's a lot of structural things that would need to change as far as American sport in order for relegation to work. Because, as you know, the leagues themselves, yes, every team is kind of its own deal, but they're all under one league. And the way that one league works, you don't see as much individualism as clubs are concerned. Like a European club can go out and grab a player. And you see the same thing in MLS, but they could go and grab a player from anywhere in the world, bring them into their organization, pay them the amount they got to pay. They just have to do it within a certain period of time.
Yeah,
Whereas,
transfer windows.
right, exactly. Whereas you look at the U.S. sport and you have a dedicated, here's the draft, here's the signing period, and you're within that system and that has to maintain, which is vastly different. And it's a lot more, it's corporate, sure, but you don't have the same ambition that you get from a club going out and saying, we are going to pay what we want to pay to get this guy because this guy's going to fit our system.
Well, yeah. So the market is different, sort of, because for all professional sports, you basically have the college ranks, right? High school and college.
Right.
It's basically your amateur level sports. Because the problem is the minor leagues, like minor league baseball, the G League in the NBA, NFL has nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey is international. Hockey can do the same thing that the Premier League can. In fact, if they were smart, they would literally just go set up camp in the Eastern Bloc and find yourself a winning team.
Right.
But at the same time, the Premier League's kind of the same way because you have the training academies. Each club has a training academy, and most of the good clubs have A-rated, top-rated academies. And so it's your ability to take from from these academies, from the other teams. And the problem is and we've seen it because it's just so dominant. You're not like the ability to have another league of football that can sustain itself from which to pull teams up and send teams down to. But here's the biggest thing, man. Like, there are sports that could absolutely do it, and it's all about capitalism, man. It's like, dude, make the moves, spend the money, win the championships. You win the championships, you make way more money anyways, instead of being on a constant rebuild like some of the franchises in every single American sport that we have.
So let's take an option here. Let's just pull one sport out, the one that seemingly still can't find a way to get their butt off the ground. Let's go with baseball. Let's go with MLB, right? Just as an example.
Right, and the only thing that we would have to assume is that the AAA system were not affiliates, that they were actually, they would have to be standalones, and that's where, and again, I understand that the system's different, but we have to assume that they're standalones. Like,
they would have to be in order for this to work.
Yeah, the Devil Rays aren't going to get sent down to the minor leagues to have the Devil Rays AAA affiliate come up to Tampa.
No, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work.
So you have to assume that they're able to stand on their own.
Right, exactly, and that's the way it would have to be. So you have to eliminate pretty much the player development that is single, double, AAA. That has to go away.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get picked up by these clubs, they will reach out to them. Now, the question is, do we have a draft at any point, or do we just start signing these kids whatever we want to sign them for with the money that you have?
Well, I think you look at it the same way that the Premier League does. I think you don't have a draft. These kids are out there. They're everywhere. It's your job to scout, sign, and figure out how to fit it into your salary cap. That's your job. That's what makes you a good club, is when you have good managers, not the coach on the field. In Premier League, they call coaches managers. I'm talking about general managers, GMs. Right. When your club is run, the board or the general manager or however your system is set up, when you have good management, you're able to make a bad club good if you're just willing to do it.
Right.
I watched an interview at the end of the game, and they interviewed like one of the most popular Norwich City players. He's been promoted twice, been relegated twice. It was tough to watch, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But he just flat out said it. He goes, well, the club won't spend the money to buy good players. He goes, I don't know what anybody can expect out of us. He goes, I hate it for. He goes, I hate it for the supporters. I hate it for the fans. I hate it for all my buddies on the squad. But he just flat out said it, and that's what it comes down to. Isn't capitalism all about he who has the gold makes the rule? Like, if you can afford it. I mean, look at the Yankees. The Yankees have been buying championships for 60 years.
Yeah, and
it's
you
really
have Dodgers who are buying, but they can't get those championships.
They're spending a lot of money.
No kidding.
It's like the startup company that just refuses to get off the ground.
Yeah,
but it's.
I think, but you do have a very interesting way. Now the question is, how many teams do you send down? How many teams do you bring up? Like, how do you set the lower leagues?
So what do we have? Like, well, and again, there's a ton that has to go into this because you have divisions as well.
Right.
So are you sending down 6? Because I think in baseball, what you have West, Central, and East.
Send the bottom from each.
So that's sending 6 down, right?
Yeah, you would send 6 down. I mean, you really have one of two options. You can either send the lowest in each, or you would have to send down 6. There's really not anything in between that.
Yeah. So, well, I think if you do that, then you send the lowest too. The problem is, again, you go back to this divisional stuff, and so it makes it more difficult. So there would have to be kind of a restock on how you did it. You'd really just have to have National League, American League is really the only way you could separate it.
But speaking of National League and now American League, I mean, where do they stand at this point? Because those guys run on different rules. I mean, do you just have it set up where there's just a fine line straight down the middle of our country? There are this many teams that exist, and those teams are all national. These teams are all American, and they can only compete for those spots. Or do we just eliminate, the rule changes of NL versus AL, make it just a free-for-all, and the divisions at that point don't matter? The leagues don't matter.
Well, I think you get rid of the divisions, but I think you keep the leagues, but at the same time, like designated hitter, not designated hitter, these are all. That's really it's the only thing separating the NL and the AL.
Right.
I mean, the NL and the AL play completely separate styles of baseball because of one rule. Right.
Exactly.
But here's what you do. I don't care. You kick one out from each. That's it.
Just one. Yeah.
You just one from each, and then you just kind of alternate. So the top two teams coming in this year, number one team goes AL, number two goes NL. Next year at relegation, number one team coming up goes to NL, number two team goes to AL.
Just rotate it.
I think you just rotate it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So let's just go ahead and pull an example here.
Or you could do this between those two teams. Whichever's like if the AL lose, like so if the AL's team is worse, then they get the worst team coming in.
Right.
So they'll get the number two team coming up, and if the NL's team was better than the AL's relegation team, then one comes up. I know this; it's a lot of math to track, but really, it's not. Basically, what you're doing is you're kicking out the people that suck, and you're bringing in people that performed, and you give them a shot. And it's an every year thing. It's not like you get 2 or 3 years.
No.
It's every year. So it motivates you. When you're out of the pennant, you're out of the pennant or out of a championship race, you are still out there trying to win games, and you're not trying to tank.
So let's take a couple examples here. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, we go off of last year's standings, and you had the two last teams. NL, your last place was Miami Marlins. Okay. They went 57 and 105. And then you had in the NL, over in the AL, you had Detroit, who went 47 and 114. So both of them get kicked, and let's just say for city's sake, let's add Louisville and Charlotte.
Let's add the Durham Bulls and the Corpus Christi Hooks. All right, whatever. Yeah.
And so at that point, let's just say Corpus Christi ends up going AL. Durham Bulls go NL, and congratulations, boom, those teams have now gone up. Now, what you'll at that point see is stadium upgrades, things like that. But at the same time, even at the smaller clubs, they could probably get away with smaller crowds initially. But eventually, if those teams stay up, they're going to have to do some expansion on the stadiums. And that's where another issue comes in, because you look at the likes of the established teams, the Tigers, the Orioles, teams that have not quite gotten back there. And you're looking at their monoliths of stadiums that are just already empty, and they're going to stay that way. Money.
Well, I mean, you can do it to where you basically displace the team coming up. It's a sacrifice they have to make. Like your new home stadium is going to be in Detroit. Dude, they're professional athletes. Move.
My only thing is, does the city of Detroit deserve that good team when the other city's been supporting them?
But how good are they?
Who knows? Give them a shot.
So, well, no, but it's the same thing we see in Premier League. They come in and they have these tiny, these tiny stadiums, and.
But it's the same supporters. It's the same team. It's the same city.
Right. So what I'm saying is, you don't let them go to Detroit. You let them play where they are, and by succeeding, they're able to expand that stadium.
That's what I would want.
And afford better players.
That's
Corpus
what I would
Christi
want.
Plays out of Corpus Christi.
Right.
And because maybe there's a monetary incentive, like there's a bonus,
right.
Because now you're getting the TV contract money, right?
That's exactly right.
Now there's a lot more money that comes into it that we don't see it necessarily at the gate. That will mean a massive influx percentage wise for what they take annually.
Right. So that's what you'll see. The Corpus Christi Hooks Stadium, it would go from 7,000-8,000. They'll probably expand it to 15,000-20,000.
Yeah,
and then
real quick.
If they keep staying in.
And if they stay up, the next year they'll have more money. And if the Tigers go down, they're not going to keep their roster. It's the same way in Premier League. Like the relegated clubs, they just get picked clean of any player that's Premier level talent. So the Detroit
you'll definitely
Tigers
see shorter contracts.
Yeah, well, you'll start and see and man, I didn't think about that, but that would be a wonderful thing in all sports because
shorter
these
contracts.
10-year, $400 million contracts
are ridiculous.
I totally get that that's the market, but why in the fighting Texas Aggie hell has the market become that? It's absolutely despicable.
Right, and God forbid, just as your example, Patrick Mahomes, let's say he gets dinged up, like he's got that guaranteed money that he could just retire on that at this point and eat his ketchup wherever he wants.
Dude, at 400 million for 10 years, so that's 40 million a year. He's making $109,000 a day. A day, bro. A
That's not
day.
fair. It's
Well,
not fair.
dude, it's not fair, and that's the problem. Like, man, you know what you can live on, like as an athlete. And I get, you know what, you're an athlete, you're an entertainer, you've worked hard to be incredibly good at this. I
Right.
totally understand there should be a market, but man, you trying to tell me you need $40 million a year to live? Now, come on now.
Not a
And I love the argument. Well, yeah, but that's blah. Why did we get to this point? Why are we at the point where these, like, we're like, oh wow, look at that contract, and that was it. We just kind of bad and I make a comment and move on. Like, when's there going to be $1 billion contract? You know, it's so
10
stupid.
years. Give it 10 years.
I don't know if we're going to make it that far. It's so stupid and asinine, the money that athletes make.
Oh, it's ridiculous, and not to mention, I mean, not going to go down this road too far, but how incredibly fast they can spend it too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts.
Well, but again though, so going back to the relegation thing,
right?
You're going to see some shorter contracts, 2 to 3 year contracts, but then you also have a transfer window to where, man, if you want to pay for that player, you do it, and you send them prospects to go win when they're down. Can you imagine an organization like the Detroit Tigers playing in AAA?
That'd be awesome.
I think it'd be great.
It'd be so good. I mean,
you didn't want to win?
And you're going to have more local folks, like let's just say, for example, Louisville, right? Or somebody else, like who else is down there, nearby Detroit that's got a team. But, like let's say Kalamazoo, I'm not sure if they have a team, but, they could go be playing against Detroit in a baseball game. I love the idea of a smaller market team playing against a bigger team. I mean, that's one of the things that makes the FA Cup and things like that so great. You get to see the smaller teams play the bigger teams.
Well, like, what if the White Sox get relegated and Gary, Indiana has a team and they just go play over at U.S. Cellular? I think it'd be hilarious.
Well, yeah, and I think what you're going to start seeing is if you did do that, you could maintain some team names for sure in some areas, and that wouldn't be too much of a hard sell. But then you would have some other AAAs in markets like the Iowa, over there in Des Moines, the Iowa Cubs. They would need to change to something else.
See, like, look at it this way. Let's take basketball.
Sure.
Like, who wouldn't be playing this year? The New York Knicks and the Phoenix Suns. Sorry.
Adios.
Because you can't tell me that you were trying to win when you went 17-65.
Right.
Like, so
that's nuts to me that you lose that many games.
Well, in the NBA, the lower you are, the more ping pong balls you get in the lottery hopper.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think relegation. The problem is it can never happen because we don't have basically the minor league system in any of the sports that make it work. NFL is a standalone. The minor leagues basically college. They've tried what? They tried the XFL. The AFL was killed.
And we're going off of that idea. I think the idea of like a developmental football league wouldn't be like the worst thing.
Well, the only thing, I don't think it would be at all.
No. And you put them in smaller markets, San Antonio, or Austin. You could put one in Albuquerque. You could put one, in
every state that doesn't have an NFL franchise.
Yeah, pretty much. And what that'll do is, one, it'll create NFL football. And if anything has been proven, you can even look at MLS, and we can go all day in MLS, USL, all the different soccer leagues. Which, mind you, we don't have a relegation system yet, which is ridiculous. But you look at those things, and you got local support in these communities. I mean, just as an example, New Mexico United, which was formed like 2 years ago, they play over at Isotopes Park for where the Albuquerque Isotopes play baseball, and they're selling out that stadium. With everything going on right now, no, but they were selling out that stadium, putting 17,000, 18,000 people in there for a Division II thing. The Houston Dynamo weren't drawing that kind of crowd.
Yeah.
There's
a couple people in Houston.
Yeah, the smaller market teams are good for the sports across the board, and they need that kind of support and the opportunity to advance.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would just take literally an entire sports overhaul. It's just never going to happen
No,
because the owners in charge have too much power now.
exactly. We literally have created the monopoly of the situation where it's like those folks that are up there don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize their position. They're comfortable where they're
Or
at. They don't
yeah,
want to lose that.
or their income.
Right.
And,
Exactly
and
that.
and you can see like almost the mandatory, like the internal mandatory drive to ensure their place when you see the nepotism of owners like in the NFL, where a family just passes down the team.
Right.
Like, my dad, what he does, like what he used to do before he retired, phenomenal engineer with manufacturing industries related to the oil industry down in Houston.
Hmm.
Awesome. I'm my father's son. I could never do that in a million years. Just because my name's Roy May, just like I'm Roy May Jr., that doesn't mean I can do what he did. So I don't get this passing down crap. But whatever, man. I'm gonna start getting fired up. Start talking about this crap. Because basically, I'm just saying I want Jerry Jones to go away. That's really everything we talk about at the end of it. I'm just trying to get rid of Jerry Jones.
Get rid of Jerry Jones.
If
Throw
he
him under the
leaves,
bus.
if he leaves and puts his son in there, I'm just like, shit. Come on.
Because he's going to do the exact same thing. You know that Jerry Jones has like a laundry list of things. Here's what you do. When I give you the reins to my empire, here's what you're doing. Just enjoy it.
It is depressing.
Yeah. Hey folks, I gotta say it's been a fun day. It's been crazy out there. We know. We want everybody. We just want to let you know that we are thinking about you and we care about you guys. Make sure if you're out and about, for the love of God, just wear a mask so we can stop talking about theoretical crap and go back to the real world.
Yeah, if you want football even in the spring, quit being an asshole.
Just wear a mask. It's not that
It's
hard.
it's really not that hard.
It's not bad.
I promise. I can't stand it. It's miserable. But the same people complaining about you can't tell me what to do with my body are sometimes the same people that say, well, you shouldn't be able to decide what to do with your body. You got to pick a friggin' argument, man. Pick a side. Look, I get it, but wearing a mask isn't taking away a civil liberty. It's not. It's just not. All right? They're not like, look, everybody needs to wear a mask and turn in all their guns. They didn't say that. All right? No. Everybody wear a mask and get ready for bread lines. Also not a thing, okay? Just just wear a mask. That's it, okay? Just wear a mask when you go out because you know what? Not only are you basically being a good person because you're following the friggin' rules, but you're also looking out for your fellow person, your fellow mankind.
And that's the thing that you guys need to realize above all else. For those of you who aren't paying attention, it all comes back to you putting your particles on the air where you may have it. That's what the main issue is.
Yeah, just be a good person. Wear your mask. Everybody, please. I just want sports back. That's all I'm asking for.
I want to play shows. I want to get out.
Rob wants to go to shows. Probably wants to go karaoke at the piano bar.
For the love of God,
I want to have people. I want to have like a big old party at the house and not, it's not hard. Yeah. Just wear a mask. Be a good person.
That's right.
Look out for your fellow Americans. Just don't be a shithead. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. Well, folks, I will say as we go forward here, just a friendly reminder: our little store is live, so
yes,
come out and get some shirts, get some shorts. We've got some other designs in the wings coming out. We got some new things in that lineup as well as our current lineup. So tell your friends and buy one for your friends, buy them for people that you don't like, and send it to them too. Who cares?
Yeah, gifts. It's getting hot, so the nice light short running shorts. They're up there and grab some shirts. The shirt material is real soft. It's real nice brushed cotton. So just hop on the store. The link. If the link's not in our bio, we'll make sure it's up there.
Yeah, and we'll definitely tag it on this link. Yeah, right below this link as well. And make sure you guys, once again, take care of yourselves. We do appreciate every single one of you. Make sure you do follow us over Robert _White 14 on Twitter. over there on Twitter. You got Roy May 15 on Twitter, as well as our own personal podcast Twitter. So, man, looking forward to this next week. Finally getting back to doing some fun work.
Yeah, gotta get to work, and then when you love what you do, right?
That's
Never
right.
have to work a day in your life. I'm looking forward to playing a lot of golf this week. I've had some pretty successful runs with work, so I will be taking some half days. Play a little bit more golf this week. Last 2 weeks, I've kind of been chained to the laptop, during the day. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is RedAss Podcast. Hopefully, we'll be able to be back with you guys a little bit sooner. Maybe this next week we'll get another one out. But
yes,
we appreciate you guys. Take care, and of course, wear a mask. Thanks to Giggle.
Yeah, wear a mask and giggle.